Let's move to the next speaker, who will be Sally Edwards from the GSQ. So Sally joined the GSQ in 2012 as one of our geoscientists. She's worked within the research community connected to the petroleum industry and government sectors for more than 15 years, with experience in field and technical roles in Australia and New Zealand. Sally's qualifications include a BSc Honours in Geological Science from University of Adelaide and a postgraduate Master of Science degree in Earth Science from James Cook. And Sally's presentation today is titled The Camooweal Deep Seismic Project. Thanks, Sally.
Hi, today I'm talking about Phase 1 activities for the Camooweal Seismic Project with an emphasis on the planning, the engagement and then our seismic reconnaissance survey. So we'll start off with a bit of an introduction and then we'll go through each of our 3 phases to Phase 1. Oh, just by the way, Phase 1 finished in October, so about 6 weeks ago. The Camooweal Seismic Project occurs under the Strategic Resources Exploration Program, or SREP. It has a Northwest Queensland focus. And the SREP program occurs over 4 years, and its aim is to boost exploration and support resource development. The Basin Studies Group received $3.6 million to drive exploration for gas in the Isa Super Basin, the South Nicholson and the Georgina Basins. And our project occurs under the Frontier Basins Gas Initiative. So why focus on this area? Well, from the minerals drilling in the area, we know there's a petroleum system, but we don't know a lot about it. So the hopes of this project is to find out about source rocks, reservoir units, some of the structural controls on the basin, and we really don't have a strong feel for what's under the Georgina Basin. This study occurred as a desktop study, and the main aims of Phase 1 were to identify outcrop areas, traditional owners, who our landholders were, and what resource tenure holders were in the area. 3 outcrop areas were identified: Area 1 in the south, Area 2 in the central region, and Area 3 in the north. Mapping also sort of revealed who our stakeholders were. The red box is our seismic survey area, and within that you can see a grey crosshatch area representing our traditional owners, the Injalanji Dadanu people. We have 10 landholders in the bright or the bold colours, and for land access we approached 5 on the eastern edge of this area. And in the black, we have 1 local government area, which is the Mount Isa City Council. We have 13 mineral resource companies in the area, and it's not showing very clearly, but here we have 1 petroleum tenure. And we notified 3 government areas. I'm calling our engagement approach strategic. It's very different to the way GSQ's done business in the past when trying to get access to land. For this project, we've had a dedicated team to aid or to lead our engagement. We had Julianne Braithwaite sort of engaging with our traditional owners, and we had John Hughes engaging with our landholders. And through this approach, we've started to develop some really strong relationships with the local people. In July, a team of 4 from the Geological Survey and our 2 engagement officers headed west. The engagement that had begun in the office with phone calls and emails continued with us staying at one of the training camps run by our traditional owners, the Injalanji. This gave us an extra opportunity to sort of talk face to face with people and get them familiar with what we're trying to achieve in their area. Cultural heritage was a huge part of Phase 1, and it started with us sort of attending a half-day cultural heritage awareness training session with the traditional people. From the training sessions, when we went into each of our field areas, a cultural heritage was the first couple of days sort of in each area where we worked with the traditional owners, cultural heritage people, to become more familiar with sort of how they've used the landscape traditionally and the little artefacts that we're likely to see. And it made us more aware of little tiny implements like this tiny little stone fragment which they've used as a cutting tool. And once the cultural heritage clearances were given, fieldwork could begin. Area 1 is our southernmost area, and I've called it the Pilpa Range area. This is entirely Proterozoic formations of the Isa Super Basin. We have the Pilpa Formation, the Balanu Formation, and the St. Smith Formation. So the Pilpa Formation is sandstone and siltstone. The Balanu Formation is pretty poorly outcropping, and it's conglomerate, sandstone and siltstone. And the St. Smith Formation is quartzite, sandstone and siltstone. Our Ogilvie Range region is our central region, and it contains both Proterozoic formations and Cambrian formations of the overlying Georgina Basin. The Proterozoic formations are the Lady Loretta in the purple and the Shadybrook Quartzite in the fairly bright blue. And then in the Cambrian, sort of Georgina section, we have the V Creek limestone in the turquoise colour, the Inca Formation in the pale yellow, and the Mail Change limestone in the bright yellow. The Lady Loretta Formation is laminated stromatolitic dolomite, siltstone, limestone and shale. The Shadybrook Quartzite is quartzite, sandstone, siltstone and dolomite. With the Shadybrook Quartzite, traditional mapping sort of in the Ogilvie Range region approached sort of the formation from the southern side. We approached from the northern side and we found that the area isn't entirely Shadybrook Quartzite. It's actually eroded in places with the Lady Loretta Formation on top. The V Creek limestone is limestone and dolomite, and a lot of it's heavily silicified. The Inca Formation is mixed siliciclastics and carbonates. And the Mail Change limestone is carbonates and chert nodules. Area 3 is our northernmost area, and it's in the Thorntonia region, and this is entirely Georgina Basin formations. We have the Thorntonia limestone sort of up in the northeastern corner, the Age Creek Formation, the Currant Bush limestone, the V Creek limestone, the Mail Change limestone and the Split Rock sandstone. The Thorntonia limestone is limestone, dolomite and chert nodules, and this is one of the formations that we saw karst sort of features best developed in. The Age Creek Formation is limestone, paletal dolomite and chert nodules, and it had also a quite distinctive appearance. The Currant Bush limestone is limestone, aronite and chert nodules, and this is one of the formations that we, when we sort of took samples, we had a really strong petroliferous odour for. So we've got samples of that we'll be sending off for some source rock analysis. The V Creek limestone and the Mail Change, which we had seen in Area 2, they had quite a different appearance in Area 3. Area 3, the V Creek limestone, while it's mapped as being a surface cover, when you're out there, there's not really a lot of surface exposure. There's a little bit of exposure up here, and this is probably a couple of 100 metres to this next bit of surface exposure. The Mail Change limestone, sort of we've described in sort of area 2. But in area 1, the surface expression, was quite distinctive with these unusual sort of surface expressions in a chevron shape with a dome sort of at the apex of the chevron. And our final unit that we looked at was the split rock sandstone, which is very weathered arenites and siltstones. From this, we considered the trip a huge success. We visited about 52 different sites and took samples from a majority of these. So we have a lot of samples that we'll be analysing over the next 6 months to a year. Samples will be sort of thin section for petrographic examination. There'll be source rock analysis, XRD, XRF, bulk geochemistry, hopefully some zircon dating. And while all of that's occurring, we've started planning for next year's seismic survey.
Thanks very much, Sally. I think that's a really good presentation because it just shows the government's focus on these frontier basins, particularly in the northwest of the state. And that's classic territory for government pre-competitive geoscience to be focused. You know, in underexplored basins, frontier basins, that's the right place for us to be most active. Now, the work that Sally's described really talks also to the importance of engaging with the traditional owners, the landowners and so on in these regions. As government, we're not exempt from that engagement. In fact, if anything, we have greater burden on us than even industry. So it's really important, and the great work that was done by the team in dealing with the local people up there is really encouraging and really quite successful. And as Sally talked about, we will do seismic there next year. So this is really the groundwork for additional seismic up in those the South Nicholson, Isa Super Basin type part of the world. Thanks very much, Sally.